An alien's in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are ya?
I am, well, I'm
That
I'm
doesn't
on
sound convincing.
I know, I'm on break and I should be better than I am right now. But I don't know. This year has caught up to me. I've like hit a wall where I don't know if I can function anymore. Um, I'm just tired and like worked on, even though I started break on Friday, I didn't really because then I worked on Saturday. And then yesterday I had um a birthday party that was overwhelming. And when we left, Dan was like, we're not doing that, right? He literally goes, we can just like limit the guest list for our kids' birthdays to like our siblings and their kids, right? Like that, it doesn't have to be more than that. I go, okay, well, like we can have like a couple friends.
Well, yeah, you'll have like
But
Jill and
right,
Brittany, but
and
like,
but I was like we would have Dan and Jake and their kids and like we would, but he was like, yeah, because that was wild. I love my friends, but they have the too much gene in everything. Like they make too much food, they like do too much, they read like everything. They have the too much gene, and apparently that also goes into the number of invitations to parties that they send.
that is that
Um,
is wild.
Yeah. So I'm just like weird. But then also, because I hope he does listen to this podcast and feel shame. Yesterday, Doug was supposed to hang out with David and he blew him off and he didn't answer. And I literally at one point was like in tears and I was like, damn, I thought we raised a better kid than that. He goes, no, we're absentee parents. We were like crying because Doug is disappearing from everyone's life. And
Doug absolutely doesn't listen to this, but should be shamed. Yes, for
yes.
sure.
So everything's annoying and it's a mess.
We
And
should dox him.
we should. Dan was like, I hope people don't feel like, because it is, it is a symptom of the first time as an adult in a relationship kind of situation. And, and Dan was like, I hope everyone like doesn't feel the same way about me because like, let me tell you how much I hate it. And I
If
was like,
Dan like is around,
yeah, I was like, when the guys ask you to do things, you do it. I was like, you don't make plans, but you've never been a make plans kind of person.
right?
Like that, it's not like
He didn't
a
change things.
right. So I don't know. Everyone is annoying me and I'm tired. And so I'm better than I would be if I was working, but that's about it.
Same, same.
Oh, yeah, how are you? How are you?
Um, same, same. Everyone's annoying me, but I would be better if I would be worse off if I was working.
Right.
I called out today because my body is just falling to pieces. Um, it was just, I didn't, so I think I've said this on the podcast. If I have, I've probably said it 10 times. If I haven't, I haven't. But my Thursdays are my days that are just for me. I
Mhm.
clean my house. I do
Yeah.
like 10 hours of work. I stay home. I don't go anywhere. You can come to me. You can't change what I'm doing, but you can come to me if you want to
Yeah.
be where I'm at. You can call
Right.
me. I may or may not answer. You can text me, but that's my reset day. Now I'm
Yeah.
working all day, but it's my reset day. And when I don't have it, I'm not well. And it
Mhm.
just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do to counteract that. I'm not well.
Mhm.
And so my mom came in Thursday and we had Rachel's baby shower Saturday, which was beautiful, very fun. Love Rachel. Love her baby. Um, but like we went and got nails done, then we went and had dinner, and then Friday we went grocery shopping, and then Caitlin and Jamie came in, and then Saturday was the baby shower all day, and then we had everyone leaving yesterday and dinner at Meemaw's, and so then today was Monday, and I haven't had a day
Mhm.
to myself since the last Thursday because I worked the last Friday before. So it's been since the
Yeah.
last Thursday. And I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. after I awoke on the couch at 5 a.m. to my living room light being on, my studying books beside me, open to the page that I didn't read, and my laptop beside me because I was supposed to be working last night when I got home, and the TV on the like 17th episode of Neighbors because it had just kept playing on Paramount or Peacock, whatever the CBS one is. I never remember which one's
Oh,
which.
yeah, Paramount.
And I was like, I don't know what's going on in the world. I didn't do anything to prepare for podcasting. I didn't do any studying. I didn't do any work. I can't go to work today.
Well,
I
listen,
just can't do it.
I didn't even post the podcast yesterday, so I feel you.
Look,
And
it's
I also
just,
didn't post Thursdays on Thursday. I posted Thursdays
I
on
noticed that
Friday, and I
today.
posted Sundays on Monday. I'm just doing really well. And I
Like, at least
think,
they're like
yeah,
spaced out correctly.
yeah. I realized something as you were talking about your reset. I realized what the problem is for me. I don't know if you know, but before I moved to my house, I mean, I lived with my parents, but I could basically be alone at my parents' house because the house is big enough. And before I lived with my parents,
Hmm.
I lived alone. I haven't been alone. And I love my husband. I wouldn't have married him if I didn't like him. And I like spending time with him, but I haven't been alone in far too long.
Yeah. Yeah. And people want me to get in a relationship. Why?
No,
I can't be alone then. I don't think you understand how that works.
it is. It is a lot.
I haven't found someone I like that much yet.
Yeah. No, he's worth it. He is. But man, yeah.
Yeah. So, so I'm surviving, but I took today as my reset day, but then spent the entire day preparing basically for the podcast and working on reports that I was supposed to do yesterday. Even though I got started at 9 this morning, I have been working all day except the two times that my body shut down and went to sleep for an hour at a time. And it was like 5 o'clock, and Mary Kay was like, "How's it coming?" I was like, "I have to go get a Coke. I have to go get a
Yeah.
Coke. I will be back.
Yeah.
I will be back, and then I might be close to ready." But in case you're wondering, it does take a little bit of time to research the most iconic movie of all time. So here we are. Um, so while we're recovering, resetting, etc.,
Yeah.
can you bring us a little joy, inspiration?
Sure. And this one actually might be a little positive. I know.
Ooh,
Um, there's an old proverb that says you can't choose your family. You take what the fate hands you. And like them or not, love them or not, understand them or not, you cope. Then there's the school of thought that says the family you're born into is simply a starting point. They feed you and clothe you and take care of you until you're ready to go out into the world and find your tribe. Yeah.
that is correct. That is correct. That was much more pleasant than normal. So I'll take it. Well, friends, we've come to the day. It is time. Oop, my headphones are dying. They've let me know.
Oh, okay.
Um, so they're gonna die in a moment and I'll plug them in. Anyways, today is the day. Interrupted my dramatic monologue. Um, we've come to the end of Hannibal, our beloved series of Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy. And here we are to cover our thoughts, feelings, etc. So I want to give you a little overview of what we've been through. So this show had 39 episodes. Feels like 39,000, but it did have 39.
That,
Um,
yeah, I guess it did.
yep, 13 a season. That is how math works. Um, what would you, so before we get into the discussion of how the seasons break down,
Yeah.
what would you have given this rating out of 10 for the entire season, like the entire show?
For the entire show, I would probably give it like an 8, but I'm also a very harsh judge, especially
Like eight
compared,
even.
yeah, especially compared to like apparently everyone who rates it on IMDb because it's wild how high those ratings are. Yeah, I think I'd give it like an 8 even. I think I did not like season 3 and we've talked about that. But and I think that that pulls it down more than it might just because it then ended on that note. Um, but I do think for the most part it was a very, very well put together show. I thought that it was interesting, it was creative, it was well done. I had some questions about some graphic and cinematography choices. Um, but overall, I enjoyed it and would recommend it. So I think an 8 even is probably where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm close. I said I'd about 8.4, which I felt a little bit of a redemption arc from the end that you didn't. So
Yeah.
that makes sense that my score would be a little bit higher than yours.
Hmm.
I'm very pleased to say that the actual score that was given was 8.5. So I was very close to the rest of the world.
You were, but also
Um,
individual episodes were like 9.7s, and I was like, that's not
right.
reasonable. Like,
No, I think anything
I
above 9.5 is really hard to get. Like,
it's so funny because like I'm not the kind of teacher who doesn't give a hundreds. Like I know teachers who are like, you can't give 100 because then there's no room to improve. I would never be that way for a student, but I also think that like when I see a movie rating that they're like, it got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm like, why? It wasn't that good. Like nothing is that good. I'm
well,
so I'm so cynical.
well, speaking of, I do have some other reviews to tell you about.
Oh my God, can't wait.
Um, I, of course, went to Common Sense Media. I
Oh,
don't recall. I feel like they have bad connotations. I feel like we've talked about it. I don't remember. It just always makes me laugh. So I do
no,
always go to.
listen, I love Common Sense Media in both ironically and unironically. As a teacher, I really like it for just getting a quick overview of like if I'm about to show a movie in
Mhm.
class and it's PG, why is it PG? Like what are the things
Right.
that parents are going to complain about so I know how to defend whether I can show it in class or not. Not that
Right.
I would necessarily think that those things are inappropriate, but I need to know as some person taking care of someone else's children, what are the potential complaints? So
Mhm.
unironically, love it for that context of if somebody's going to complain, this is what they're going to complain about.
Right.
Also, ironically, obsessed with these reviews because
Obsessed. I'm so obsessed with these reviews. They they kill me. So
yeah,
overall, Common Sense from the site gave it a rating of 16 plus. I think that's
valid.
fair.
I think that's valid.
I think that is very
Based on
fair.
what their age brackets are and how they rank things, I think that is valid.
Yeah, I because I think I mean I don't think it's warrants enough to be 18 plus.
Right.
I would not show this to some people under 18, but I don't think it warrants it as a whole.
Yeah.
But I also think you got to be at least in like a high school age and probably not a freshman age to like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it gets dark and intense. So
It's also
very
just
fair.
gory. Like and obviously it was tame enough that it was on network TV. Like I get
Mhm.
that. But it's pretty graphic at certain points, and I don't think a child should watch it for
Right.
that
I
reason
agree.
alone. And also
Yep.
psychology wise, like psychologically, what is happening in the show is advanced. Like not even in a like, oh, it's too big for you. It's like a at 14, you can't comprehend the conversations they're having.
Yeah. And there are some like sexually explicit scenes that some people care more about and less about. Like,
Right.
so, those are some things to consider as well when looking at this. Well, I have two parents here who disagree with this rating. Um, 10 years ago, so this is around the time the show's ending.
Yeah.
Someone put that they rated this 9 plus because, and I quote, it is family friendly and they watch it during dinner time. They go on to say they
Is
showed this to their 7 and 10-year-olds and they rated it
um
9 plus.
I would like to formally, as a mandated reporter, call the Child Protective Services.
Don't worry, it gets better. It gets better. A mere 11 months ago. So we're in the same world we're in today. 10 years
Yeah.
ago, some things were different. We're in the same world we are in today.
No, 10 years ago, things were not that different.
Right. But 11, they weren't that different, but they were like, they were. There was some. We're still coming out. Millennials weren't
Watching,
parents yet.
yeah, but watching this with my 7-year-old, things were not that different.
Right. No, 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 no. No, no. So 11 months ago, someone posted that it is 2 plus because it has great messages.
911, I would like to report a crime.
I read that. I was like, that's all they put. They didn't put no further explanation. No further explanation. For real a murderer. And maybe a child murderer. I don't know. Because they made it 2 plus.
No, I would like to report a crime.
It is
I
just
don't know I don't
absolutely.
know what crime, but a crime has been committed.
Yeah. So Common Sense is always a fun place to find outlandish claims.
Yeah.
Um, so then I go to Metacritic. Oh,
But usually common sense is in the complete opposite direction, where it is a woman being like, they kissed, my child cannot be
I
exposed to
know.
this.
I know. There were a few people that were like, it's 18 plus, it's horrifying, it's disgusting. But like 18 plus is 2 years off of what Common Sense said. So it's like, whatever, put what you want.
Yeah.
That's really not that big of a
No,
difference.
and that is okay. I respect that. I respect
Yeah,
that. I disagree a little bit because I'm not quite as intense as some
sure.
of those moms, but I respect you being like, I don't think a child should see this.
And there were some that were like 14 instead of 16. I was like, okay, that is high school. So maybe you're like high school or not high school. Like, sure, that's some
Right.
wiggle room there too.
Yes.
9 year olds, 2 year olds
No.
probably should not be watching Hannibal across the board. Doesn't really
No.
matter your parenting
No.
style.
Correct.
Doesn't feel like it's appropriate. Um, so then I go to Metacritic and they broke down their scores by season.
Okay.
And so season one, they gave a 70, which feels a little low
That feels
because
very
season one
low for
was
season
very
one. Season
good.
one was, yeah.
Yeah. Season two was 88, which feels fair. I
Yeah.
probably would give it like a 90 maybe, but like 88, fine. That's
88 I'm
8.8.
cool with. 88 I'm cool
Yeah.
with.
Season three is 84, which is a pretty consensus across people
Yeah.
because people got really high on season two and then they
And
really
then
clung
it
to season three.
dropped. But here's the thing. You really gonna tell me that season three was better than season
Right.
one?
Yeah, I do disagree with that. I do disagree that season three is better than season one. I think season one and season two should have been closer. I do think season two is the best, but I do think season one and season two are a lot closer
Yeah. I'm trying to even
in
remember
ratings.
what even happened in season two.
Don't worry, I'll give you a rundown. I'll give you a rundown. Stay
Okay.
tuned.
Because
Um,
I think season one is my favorite. I think season
I
one is
think
my
so
favorite.
too.
Season two I liked. I thought it was well
I see
done.
why season two is rated higher, but I
I
also
do.
think season one might be my favorite.
But season three, no. If you're saying that the show didn't end badly, it got a redemption arc, we're ranking the whole thing as a
Hmm.
entire unit, fine. But to then separate season three and give it an individual ranking that high, I'm
Yeah,
confused. I am
yeah.
confused.
Well, there are 4 critics that gave it 100. I could not tell if this was season three or
Or the show.
overall because of how it was broken down under Metacritic.
Okay.
I've not heard of one of these critics,
Okay.
but I have heard of the other three. So we have Slant Magazine,
Okay.
fine. Vox.com, fine, who did a lot of interviews with Brian Fuller for this show, and I think that may have been a slanted rating. HitFix,
Vox has never
okay.
once ever published something that wasn't massively slanted in one direction.
Right. So I was like, that
Like,
one, I'm
so
not too surprised
yeah,
by.
I'm not concerned about what Vox's rating for anything is.
Right. HitFix, which is the one I've never heard of.
Okay, me either.
And then RogerAbear.com. It was not him because he passed away in
Oh,
2013.
I was gonna say it wasn't him though. They got
Which is
soft when he died.
wild.
They got
Right. It
soft
is
when he died.
wild. I was shocked to see them listed as a 100 on Metacritic. but the lowest, do not fret, was Pittsburgh Post. They get, or the last OS2, Pittsburgh Post gave it 60, and Yahoo TV gave it 50, which I didn't know Yahoo TV was a thing. And I've instructed myself to read a screenshot here.
Oh,
So let's see
good.
what that says. Let's see what that says.
I love my notes that just say read note on phone.
Yeah. It says Hannibal is the most radical enterprise on network television right now. Hannibal is
Okay.
also one of the most hilariously ridiculous shows on TV. The fussy perfectionism of Hannibal Lecter, from his impeccable suits with Johnny pocket squares to his smirking murmurs of polysyllabic nonsense, is screamingly camp while lacking the wit of truly accomplished camp.
You know,
Which
well,
isn't terribly written for Yahoo TV, first of all.
no, I was gonna say, and you know, while I don't necessarily entirely agree personally, I don't think that's a bad critique.
It's not a bad critique. I was shocked to read that. I was like, I need to actually read this
Yeah,
critique. And that was
because
the lowest rated one, which was
because I
50.
do think, and to be fair to Yahoo TV, a Brian Fuller show trying to do camp and failing is
Is on par.
correct. Like,
Yeah. It's on brand.
yeah, okay.
Um, so now,
And part of the problem is it's because Brian Fuller doesn't believe that what he's doing is camp, even though the rest of the world knows that what he's doing is camp.
right. Bless his heart. I love him dearly.
I do too. I just if he leaned into the camp instead of thinking that it was like a really deep take on dark comedy, we would be in a very different position.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the different seasons, so we know what we've gone through
Perfect.
throughout this time. So season one doesn't want to tell me.
Season one
It's all of
was
it.
the Chesapeake Ripper and Abigail.
Oh, yes, I thought I was on the season one. I was just on Hannibal as a whole, and I was like, what is happening?
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, so the season one is where we are introduced to all of them, obviously. Hannibal is still a renowned psychiatrist. And he, in the first episodes where we see Abigail and what is her dad's name? Oh my
Jacob.
gosh, why?
Jacob.
Jacob. Yeah.
There's
Yep,
more than
Jacob.
there's like it's a three name name. It's a serial killer name.
I know, and I wish it told me a lot faster than it is telling me. Anyway, so we find him.
It's Henry Jacob Hobbs or something.
Yeah. Henry Jacob Hobbs. And so we see him and he's been killing all these people, and we learn he's been bringing Abigail into it. And so he tries to kill her when he kills him when he's dying also. Will becomes very fatherly of her, takes her in, takes care of her. She's going through the hospital and going through treatment, both psychologically and physically. And then Hannibal also starts to get into her head. And towards the end is where we see him basically talk her into killing someone who he says killed her friend. And then she goes missing and we think she's dead. And it's kind of the first break we see in Hannibal and Will, who up to now can work together with the FBI.
Yeah.
And he started seeing Will as a patient. Will also has encephalitis throughout the season. So we start seeing about
Wait, the
halfway through.
encephalitis was still season one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Damn.
Because remember, he gets institutionalized at the end of the season.
Oh,
Yep.
right.
So we have the encephalitis. We have the introduction to Dr. Bloom, and Bloom and Will have a little fandango. And we have the running storyline of the deer, of him seeing the deer through all of
Mhm.
this.
Yes.
And towards the end is when we about probably about halfway through is when we start seeing a lot of issues with Hannibal, and we know that he's lying about everything.
Well, I
And
mean, we also know that because we're
I mean, sure, we know that this is about Hannibal Lecter, but like, you know, it starts coming out of his shell a little bit. Um, and so those are our big storylines. We do meet Bedelia in this season, but it's about halfway through we meet Bedelia, and only briefly. Again, same with Freddie. We see her in a couple episodes, but it's very briefly.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to cover everything. And we focus on the Chesapeake Ripper. It's a lot more one-offs than I feel like I remembered it being. Um, because it does tie in so well in the first season. And
Yeah,
we
but
do have such a
it's
through
like
line.
all of the one-offs seem unconnected, but then they're not. Like, so
Right. Well, like we have the mushroom episode, which doesn't really have a connection. Garrett Jacob Hobbs, that's his name. And like while Garrett Jacob Hobbs is tied in because of the Chesapeake Ripper stuff. Um,
yeah.
so we have the mushroom episode. That's not, yeah. And then we have the copycat killer, which again is relevant, but it's hard to tell. And then we have Oof, which is where the kids are abducted and killing the families they're moving into. That was the one that not didn't actually get shown on
Oh, right, right,
TV.
right. Yeah.
Again, a one-off.
Well, and I guess it's
Coquine,
because it's setting up what Will and Hannibal do. They have to have a regular before they can
right.
become irregular.
Exactly. And so that's why it's a bunch of one-offs, but doesn't feel like it as
No,
a
it
lot of
really
shows do, which
didn't.
is nice.
Yeah.
We have the two angel wing people tied up in the hotel room, um, which was another separate killer. We have this, and then we get introduced to Dr. Abel Gideon. And so we get Gideon in the season. A lot happened in season one.
Yeah.
We get Dr. Abel Gideon, and then we get where the organ harvester episode. We
Mm.
get Tobias and Franklin, which is where it's what's his name? Franklin from Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, his name is Jacob Kowalski. And
Yeah,
then it's
Jacob
Jacob Kowalski
Kowalski
and his boyfriend, who
from
is
Hemlock
who's from
Grove.
Hemlock Grove. Yeah, who's the Sheriff Michael from Hemlock Grove.
Mhm.
So
So we get a couple of those episodes. We get the totem pole bodies with the old man. We get
Yes.
the Glasgow Smile episode. Uh, and then we come back to Dr. Gideon's escape, where he, kills someone and takes Chilton. We get Georgia's episode where she comes in. And then we get the final episode with Abigail going missing, Georgia dying. We find the ear in the sink, and Will losing his mind effectively and being institutionalized. That is all season one,
Yeah.
which is just wild. And I think that's why I think it's my favorite because it's so
Yeah.
much and it doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't. And I think now that you're saying that and that that's where season one ends, knowing
Mhm.
how much then happens in season two, while I think it's still well done, that is a lot. Like I now remembering how much of what we just watched was all season two. I'm overwhelmed by season two.
Yeah, yeah. Season two is also a lot.
Yeah.
But it felt more like a lot too, I think. It
Yeah, no,
was
that's what I'm
just
saying. That's what I'm saying. Season
Mhm.
one, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I remember that episode. I remember that episode. But because they were story of the week cases
Mhm.
and it was more about understanding the characters and the psychology and what the FBI was doing, it didn't feel as overwhelming. But now that I'm like, oh, season two starts with Will's institutionalization and ends
Mhm.
with Hannibal's escape, all of that happened in season two, and now I'm like, oh, that's overwhelming. That is
Yeah. And we
overwhelming.
get a lot more intense editing in season two. I think this is where Steve Lightwood joined the writing team, so we're getting a lot more in your face intense
Yeah.
storylines as opposed to because season one has some heavy stuff in it, but
Yeah.
it's muted too. And
Yeah.
season two is not.
Season
Season
two
two,
is not muted. No.
they're just like, we're killing everyone. It just is what it is. So as I mentioned with season two, we come up and Will is in jail and Hannibal is not. And we get Katie
Yeah.
Purnell, who is Cynthia Nixon, coming to
Oh, fuck
visit.
that lady. I forgot about
I know.
her.
I know. And then we start seeing the art display. So if you remember, season two has the art display in
The
silo.
eyeball, the
It's like, what
eyeball.
is this? Yeah. And then we go to court for Will in episode three, and this is where the judge is strung up by
Yeah.
Hannibal. Um,
We lose Beverly, which is the worst
Not
thing that
yet.
can ever happened.
So next, this is where Beverly starts finding clues and realizing that Hannibal's the killer, and she goes to his house to find him. And this
Mm.
is where the next episode is where Freddie finds Beverly's corpse
Yeah.
in sectioned pieces. Gideon is back in jail, but they're still talking with him and they're trying to figure out if he is any help in any way.
Yeah.
Um, we find the city councilman intertwined with a tree. This is where they're growing up. Hey, Paradise parking lot.
Yep.
And then the next episode, Will is released from the asylum and they find Miriam Lass. Again, another part that like totally I forgot about Miriam.
No, yeah, because they didn't do enough with her that they should have.
Mm-hmm.
And then they basically immediately were like, "Oh, Miriam's back. Here's the Miriam storyline." Just kidding. Let's introduce you to Margot.
Right, because the next episode is the girl's body and the horse with Margot.
Yeah.
And we have Margot, and then we have the man who was helping at the farm, who is protecting people from animals.
Oh,
And he becomes
yeah.
a patient. And then we have Margot again. We go back and learn more about her. We learn more about Mason's history. Uh, and then episode 11, which is two before the end, is where we find out Freddie Lounds is not dead.
Yeah.
Um, and Hannibal goes into a little bit of a deep dive of explaining how Abigail reminds him of his sister. Um, During a therapy session, Will starts talking about how he would have killed Hannibal.
Right.
And Hannibal pushes through it. He's like, absolutely. Um, and then Jack finally starts listening to Will about Hannibal, and this is where they devise the plan that we have talked about on end. If Will warned him, or helped set him up.
Right.
And they go into Hannibal's house. We learn Abigail's still alive.
Hmm.
We learn that Hannibal then tries to kill everyone, and we don't know who's dead and who's alive at this point. And that's season 2 finale. So this one had a lot more intensity, and obviously we knew the characters better in this one, so people were, you know, I'm sure more invested at this point, anyways. But it wasn't as fluid. I felt
Hmm.
like we had a little more jumping around, and it had a lot to do with, like you mentioned, we just like went from here's Miriam last to here's Margot. It went to like we're gonna just incorporate book elements now. Like we've introduced you to the characters, we've set up what we want to set up. Now we're gonna start pulling in all the pieces from the books, and that's what we're gonna do for the rest of time.
Yeah.
Which is what happens. And then we get into season 3. The whole first half of the season is just Italy. It's all very like straightforward. It's all very thorough. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
jump around. We learn Bedelia's in Italy with him.
It's
Um,
not very good. It's all straightforward. It's just
right,
not very good.
right. And it's very different from the other seasons because we're not getting any one-off episodes. Everything is
No.
about Italy. Everything is about finding Hannibal. Everything is about finding out he was the monster of Florence. Like it's just it's like we started watching a new show. The
Yeah.
artistic direction is different and worse. Um, and then, and one of the critics that I was reading about actually said he was like, that's when we started getting Vincenzo Natali a lot as the director on a lot of these episodes, and that's where
Yeah.
it really went wrong because you saw his direction made everything just weird. It was too artsy. It was too that like it was just too much to like
Yeah. I can
really
and I
lean
can
into.
and I can see that.
Yeah. And then the second half of the season is just the Red Dragon story, which we've talked about 3 times now. So
Yeah.
you know it. Um, sorry, Sadie just started barking loudly.
Oh, I heard like it sounded like a whine and but I didn't hear the full
Mhm.
scale of it.
It's Sadie.
I mean, I
Um,
assumed that it was Sadie and not like a small child whining under your couch or something.
that would be terrifying.
That would be horrifying, but
If
also
you hear a small child whining under my couch, call someone, call the police. I don't know.
I was like,
Like,
but maybe it's the parents. who think that Hannibal's appropriate for 2-year-olds. They
Oh,
just left their
sure.
child with you.
Right. Left their whining child under my couch. Yeah, called the police, CPS, and an exorcist. And one of them will solve the problem. Um, so example one, Sadie. Uh, Hannah won a lot of awards. So one of the main awards was I meant to look up what episode Primavera was. I think it was in season 3. Yeah. So it only won one Emmy, and it was for visuals, and it was for Primavera, which was season 3, episode 2. And this is when we were still talking about these visuals are really pretty. They've done a lot of work on it before we realized how annoying it was going to be.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
so it did win an Emmy for this episode, and it did have decent visuals in this episode. Um, but I'm kind of surprised that's the only Emmy it won. It won a lot of Saturn awards, like 10 or 15. It won both Hugh Dancy and Richard Armitage, who played Florence. Francis won Critics' Choice Awards. Hugh Dancy actually won twice. He won in 2014 and 2016, so season 1 and season 3.
Okay.
They won a Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, a lot of those, a lot of IGN Summer Movie Awards, and then Hugh Dancy won the 2016 iHorror Award. So it did have quite a few awards throughout. So we talked a little bit about some of this, but I wanted to look a little bit deeper at like the character arcs that we saw develop and how they were portrayed and if they were good or not.
Right.
We only had a few characters that started out early on that survived to the end. Some of them are faster than others, obviously. Like Price and Zeller, we have from the beginning till the end.
Yeah.
They don't change. They are your comedic relief. They are your duo together. You only see them together. You only see them in like those kind of situations. There's no real arc. They're your like what is the word?
Static.
Constant. Yeah, they're your static characters. Freddie doesn't really have an arc. She is the journalist throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, people change how they see her, how they interact with her, how they work with her. But as a person, she doesn't change.
No. I mean, what happens, it's not even what happens is that the viewer gets to see the deeper levels of her, what she wants. But at the end of the day, even when she is being more sympathetic, it's not for anything other than herself. Well, and it's funny because actually I was just teaching my kids last week the difference between a main character and a hero.
Yeah.
Because like we were talking about how like Romeo and Juliet, I was like, are they heroes? So then we talked about what the definition of a hero is and everything. And we're like, they're the main characters. They're the stories about them, but are they heroes? And thank God all 3 of them agreed that they were not. They were like, no, and they said they all have good heart, like both those 2 and Friar Lawrence, like the main characters in that show. They all have good hearts, but they all make very selfish, bad decisions, and they don't do things for the good of other people.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing is like I don't even know that Freddie has a good heart. She has a journalistic instinct.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally she seems like she like cares enough about people to like not be completely like wildly unhinged cutthroat, like, but at the end of the day, the story is the story, and that's what she's there for.
And I guess to some extent, like you do see a little bit of build in that because like when she's there with Chilton and holding his like intestines in her hands.
Right. Well,
you see a little bit of change in her there.
And when she tries to get Abigail to rat Will out because not because she thinks Will did it, because she wants to protect Abigail to protect herself. Like she has moments where you see that there is nuance to her, but not enough that you can call it an arc.
Right. And then we have Jack, who truthfully doesn't have a huge arc either, which is surprising because I thought he would.
It's interesting because there's 2 terms Oh, yes. He is not a flat character. He is a
Right.
round character, but he's also definitely a static character.
Mm-hmm.
Like there
Mm-hmm.
is a lot going on internally, and he has moments and he has a lot of different sides and levels to himself. He is a round character. He is not one-dimensional, but he doesn't grow.
Right. We don't see him grow. We don't see him change, even with Bella's death, which is where you would think you would see a change in someone like
Yeah.
that. That's where you would expect it. Because even, I mean, as an FBI agent, you want someone who is static, who doesn't change based on grief, based on trauma, based on
Fair.
experiences. However, you still want to see personal growth sometimes in those kind of characters. And so, like, while the issues with Will and Hannibal and stuff should not technically change him, Bella's death should have changed him a little bit more, I feel
Yeah.
like, and it didn't. Um, but that's just my take. Um, so next up are one of our other less dynamic characters, but had a bit more of an arc than I expected, is Chilton. Um, because while he's never a good person throughout, he does have an arc just in the wrong direction. Like he becomes less sure of himself. He becomes more cocky because in the very beginning, he's stable. He believes in himself. He knows what he knows. He knows who he knows, and he's always a little bit
Yeah, but
cocky.
I don't think that's true. I think that he is completely like he is what is he's masquerading the whole time.
Yeah, and
Like
that's true. That's
even
true.
from the beginning when we first meet him and he is running the asylum, he doesn't have any idea whether Gideon did it or not. Like I think
Yeah,
the idea that he convinced Gideon that he did it, no. Gideon let him believe that he convinced Gideon that he did it.
yeah.
Like
I do think that.
I think Abel was in control that whole time. But he's masquerading through that, thinking that he knows something that he really doesn't. And I think part of him knows that, and that's why he's so cocky about it. And then he is a fucking disaster with Will in the hospital.
Yeah,
And then he gets like beat to shit and completely spirals even more. But it's really hard to count it as a spiral when you started from the ground.
that's true. So maybe it's less of an arc and more of a removing a mask situation.
Yeah, I think that that's
And
what it
so,
is.
yeah, so that makes sense too. That makes sense too. Um, and then
The person who I think has the strongest negative arc is Alana.
and that's who is next because she
Oh,
definitely has an arc.
it's not a good one. I mean,
No,
and you
it's
can
not.
say all you want about Will's negative arc because obviously that exists too. But I think Alana's is honestly worse because she knows that
Yeah.
people are being played. Like, I think Will is genuinely. Will is hard. I think Will's naive. I think Will is naive and. Well, we'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
Alana. Lana knows.
I
I think,
think she has the most intense arc in this show because, like you were saying with Will, his is more up and down. He fights it a lot. So his
mhm.
is not as consistently, and hers is a complete arc. Like
Well,
it goes from one
and
person
what
to
happens
another.
is she starts off being very protective of Will, hesitant to trust Hannibal.
Mhm.
Obviously, goes in the complete opposite direction when she then joins Hannibal and in the bed and everything. But she in season two, she's so what is the word I'm looking for? Self-righteous.
Yeah.
She's so self-righteous, like Hannibal wouldn't do that. You just have to see past it, but she refuses to see past it, what past the mask with
And she
Will.
lies for him.
And she lies for Hannibal. She
Yeah.
she cuts Will off. She like starts becoming everything that she doesn't isn't like couldn't stand for. And then she has the reality bomb. The end of season two happens. Everything is laid out in front of her face, and she still chooses negative. Like she still
Yep.
chooses to go in the wrong direction.
And she's given so many redemption opportunities because when she gives in to want to be with Margot and being her true self, she should have just gone in with Margot and left. And they had money. It's not like they were going to need money. They had money. She didn't have to keep this job. This job was bad for her mental health and everyone she worked with.
Well, and
Um,
she says that she's doing it because she doesn't think anyone else could control Hannibal.
but neither
But
can
but
she.
neither can she. And like
Yeah.
what Chilton said to her, like about, are you happy wearing his skin? Because she's not there in the guise, or she's there in the guise of being a good psychiatrist,
Hmm.
but she's there for revenge. She's there to
Yep.
hurt Hannibal, but
Hmm.
she's not mentally strong enough to hurt him. She's just
Yeah.
sucked into it all over again.
Yep.
And she knows after how hard she fell for him and what she had to do. Like if she let when she let Hannibal go to save Margot, that should have been the end of it. She never should have.
Hmm.
She in that moment knew, I'm saving Will, I'm saving Margot, and then I will never look at you again. And
Yep.
then she chooses to put herself back in his path. So it's even worse than Will's inability to escape him.
Yep.
It is an active choice.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think hers is the biggest arc, and I think it's the worst arc. And I don't know that that makes her the worst character. I don't think that
No,
she's a terrible character by
no,
any means, but I
no.
do think that she is the most dynamic from start to finish.
Yeah, I think it makes
Um,
her the hardest character to sympathize with.
for sure.
Because like obviously it's hard to sympathize with Hannibal by the
Mhm.
end of the show. And that's one of the other things that I think I hate about season 3 is that it takes away any mixed feelings you could possibly have about why Hannibal was doing what he was doing
Mhm.
or whether he had any good in him. Season
Right.
3 makes it very hard to feel that way. But for the most part, Hannibal and Will are both unfortunates in the sense that they both have severe mental health problems.
Right.
And they live in a world where they are taken advantage of for their problems, which
Hmm.
causes them to live in the problem instead of separating themselves from it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like both of them, their mind is their biggest strength in their circle of people and their biggest weakness for themselves. If
For
somebody was
sure.
like, "Hey, Will, probably stop profiling people and like get yourself mental health." And even Hannibal, maybe don't be a psychiatrist. Maybe like he's a lot harder because
I think
he's harder because he's too smart. He's
and
too
he chooses a lot of it. Like that's the thing is that he chose to follow this path a lot faster
he
than Will
did.
did. And
He
he
did.
was a younger age, so it was like a nurtured thing as opposed to
Well,
like
and that's
a,
the thing
you
is
know,
I think his problem goes back a lot farther than Will's in
right.
life. I think it goes back to his childhood and everything with his sister and
Mhm.
his backstory and having never had someone to help him as a child.
Mhm.
And sometimes when someone is both very smart and very, I mean, you see it a lot. Almost every serial killer was too smart and
And
completely abandoned and
traumatized.
traumatized. And that is a terrible combination.
Right.
And so I think he's harder to have found a remedy for the problem.
Right.
So, but it still feels like it's a being taken advantage of for your trauma. Like your trauma became your biggest gift to the world, which means you live in it forever.
Yeah.
Um, but Alana, it's not that. It's
Mhm.
not that. It is
Hers is a choice every
it is
time.
ambition, it is
Hmm.
pride, it is arrogance. It is not, it is in no way sympathetic.
Right. And because she goes from being this meek, mild, naive seeming person to being the one that's causing the most revenge and being the most manipulative by the end is like
Hmm.
such an intense, like Carolyn DeVerness is did
Yeah.
great on her acting for that.
Oh yeah. No, it's
So so next up, a little less frequent in the series, but still from beginning to end, basically. Dr. DeMaurier. What is arc and what is just hidden from us until the end?
I don't have a clue. Like,
Yeah.
to be fair, like to be completely honest, I don't know what was acting and what wasn't, like of
Yeah.
her entire story.
Right. Me too.
I truly believe, I think the flashback, the Zachary Quinto flashback, did a lot to tell us that there's a lot more of Hannibal manipulating her than we thought to begin with. I think it's a lot more of like she was already it was already too late for her. Like
Yeah.
he convinced her to
Hmm.
do things.
But I think she already had those kind of like
Oh, well,
preconceived like notions. Like Will
well,
does, but Will actively fights it consistently, and
yes.
she
I
doesn't.
mean,
She just ignores it for a while,
she
it seems
says
like.
she says like if the whole thing she said about like if there was a baby bird in the street, I would crush it. Like
Right.
she knows that she well, and it's I think it's really very interesting, specifically because in the very beginning of this of season one, there was a huge plot point that I think got dropped, and I think is a fairly big plot hole because of it. And that is that at the beginning of season one, they specifically discussed that the reason Will was able to do what he was able to do and see things the way he was is because he lacked empathy. However, I think that that is bullshit.
I thought that in the beginning they said that he was too empathetic, and that's why he felt too much, and he could feel the energy coming from
No,
people.
they said that he didn't he made himself feel it. He didn't under like he put himself in those
Mm,
positions. They said that he absorbed everybody else's emotions
right,
and
right.
it but it wasn't empathy. It was a taking it was a guilt. It was a taking on of
Yeah.
everyone. That's how they explained it in the beginning, which I think is what happened is much closer to what you're saying.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they explained it in the beginning as of him having a complete lack of an actual feeling of empathy, and it was just basically a borderline like autistic masking of an emotion, like feeling other people's
They
emotions.
did lean more towards that. Yeah,
In the
yeah.
beginning, they leaned more towards him experiencing emotions as what other people would experience them, not
Hmm.
as what he's experiencing them himself,
Right.
which was interesting in the beginning, but by the end of the show, you cannot tell me that that's what they're doing with Will's character.
Mm.
Not a chance. He's feeling fucking everything.
They've blurred way too many lines by the end.
Yes.
Yeah,
They did
it's
not
too far from the beginning. Yeah.
if they didn't make it consistent. And
Hmm.
I think I would be able to I wouldn't be able to forgive that because I'm the kind of person who can't forgive that because well because I just don't think
I know.
it was a necessary like it was an unnecessary characterization of him if it wasn't what they were going to stick with.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like and
Especially
I
because it's not one you see in the movies or from the like necessarily from the books. I mean, I
right.
haven't read all the books, but
Well,
you know,
I mean like and I understand that sometimes when you try to play too hard into that calculating part of it, you lose the ability to have character arcs. Like you think
right.
about it like Monk is a difficult character to have super dynamic arcs because his main character trait is his OCD.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
and so I understand them pulling back on that a little bit. But
Yeah.
that's such an intense way to describe someone's ability to process emotions that if you weren't going to then continue, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Especially when you then have a character like Demoria who basically says that. She basically says, I have no humanity instincts in my body.
Hmm.
Nothing. I had to teach myself what is socially acceptable.
Right.
She doesn't have empathy. She doesn't have feelings. She is what they were trying to say Will was. And
Hmm.
what happened was she taught herself the social expectations and how to be a person, and then Hannibal convinced her otherwise. And since
Right.
she did not have that ability to figure that out on her own, she believed him.
Because it's easier to go with your nature than to try and fight it the whole
Right.
time.
And then of course things continue to get out of hand. He hurts her in ways that are
Right.
actually something she can experience, like that because
Hmm.
it's beyond the mental emotional, like and it gets to the point where she's like, "Oh, this is I am now removed from a narcissistic relationship and I understand what I went through. Like that's where she is in season 3. And the problem is the blur of when did she reach that borderline of removing herself from abuse?
But she removed herself from abuse, but still let herself be manipulative. Like it's not like she
Oh no,
stopped with
she
her
didn't stop being
patterns.
she didn't stop her nature of having no
Yeah.
like, and I think that that is what makes her actually a very compelling character because
Hmm.
she didn't get rescued and then suddenly become a good person. She got
Right.
rescued from a situation and was still unable to let go of being a negative person. That's just who she is.
Yeah.
It is a masking. It is a lack of emotional integrity. Like that is who she is. So it just frustrates me that they didn't do more with that when they
Yeah.
could have separated her and Will so much in that aspect. Because I think if someone has no empathy and someone has all of the empathy, they're both able to be manipulated in a way that is unbelievable,
Right.
but they're going to come out of it differently. And what they
Hmm.
did was they blurred the lines between the two of them too much to make that the story.
Yeah, they should have made it parallels that didn't touch. But I mean, that was how those characters should have developed.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So she might have an arc and we may not really know.
Right. I think
So,
in my mind, I see an arc, but I may have just written that whole thing.
right. Like
Like,
I think I see an arc, but I can't be certain that we read it correctly.
is it fan fiction though, or did?
Right. Is it canon or fan fiction? Who's to say? Well, we'll never know. Um, well, we talked a little bit about Hannibal's arc that was not really one.
No.
Um, because he is just Hannibal the whole time. You
It's
see
int
his
You do, and it's so funny because I think if we hadn't watched the movies,
mhm.
I think I would have a very different opinion on him. But because we watched the movies slash have the background material from the books and the other stories, I like have this understanding of where he's coming from that was not actually in the show.
Right, right, right. Because we see like if you take baby Hannibal to, you know, post jail escaped Hannibal, you see an arc. But from just the Hannibal show, he is the same the whole time. He's just in jail or not. And
Yeah,
he has little outbursts or doesn't. Like it's not,
yeah,
he's not different from beginning to
no,
end.
no.
Um,
And anytime he seems different, anytime you think that there's a breakthrough, it's a ploy.
yeah. Because also, like, he's in love with Will from the beginning. Because also, we're not even seeing growth in that. We're just seeing more outward manifestation of that, not inward, I guess.
And it's interesting. The thing that is the most confusing to me, I think, and I think that they made it blurry on purpose,
Hmm.
but I don't really like it, is
Yeah.
the question of what Hannibal's obsession with Will is. Like, is it romantic? Is it like the fact that he's the only person who is it a brain crush? Like,
Right.
which I just learned that term today, having a brain crush on someone.
I
Um,
have never heard that term, but I instantly understand what it means.
right. And of course we were watching something and somebody said that and I asked Dan, I was like, do you have a brain crush on anyone? He was like, yeah, you. And I go,
Yeah, right.
what?
Right,
He was like, I was like, you think I'm smart? He goes, yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
right.
Sorry.
Most days.
Most, I don't know. But so like, is it professional? Is it romantic? Is it platonic? Just, is it brotherly? Like, what is his obsession with Will? And they blur the line, and I understand that they're blurring the line because I think that Hannibal doesn't understand what it
Mhm.
is.
Well, Hannibal doesn't really know how to love other people because the only other person he's loved is his sister. And we saw how
Yeah.
that went. So,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
no, stop it. Stop it.
But I wish it was more defined.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's on purpose. And I think that's throughout some of the books, I don't think it's as defining their relationship. I don't think it gets to the same levels because
Yeah.
Thomas Harris is more old school than Brian Fuller.
Well,
And
yeah, but it's
you
also
know,
like
so
I don't. Part of it's because I think the way that they blurred it, they didn't do it well in the
right.
sense that like if it had been like this weird bordering on romantic obsession from the beginning, I would have bought it more, but it kind of just felt like in the middle of season two, randomly Hannibal was like coming to the idea of Will, and I was like, where did that come
Yeah.
from? Like it blurred in a weird way that I was like, hold on, what?
Yeah. And I do have a couple of comments about that
Okay,
from my notes, so that'll come
okay,
closer.
yeah,
But last we'll do a little bit more on we've talked about Will, but his has been the most up and down arc. It has not been straightforward because he's fought his nature the entire time.
Mhm.
Um, and so sometimes he's up, sometimes he's down, but he's constantly changing without really changing. He's just kind of going back and forth the whole
yeah,
time. Um, which is well done and shows an arc of sorts. Um, but it's not like a traditional straightforward
yeah.
arc like you'd expect.
No, and I think Will is naive and he's very
Mm-hmm.
smart, but he's very naive. He is someone who is very clearly devoid of human contact. And we see that very strongly at the beginning where he doesn't even want it. Um,
Right.
and then and even with that though, we say that he's fighting his nature and he's going back and forth, but I genuinely don't know if he is. Don't know. I don't think any of his decisions in the entire series are his own. And that is I think that they want us to believe that Will is willing and
Mm-hmm.
understands Hannibal, but I don't. I genuinely see it as a predatory relationship.
Well, and it is, but I don't know that Hannibal knows that it is.
I don't know. Well, Hannibal is manipulating somebody because he thinks he loves them and he doesn't know what love is. Like
Right.
Hannibal's intentions are whatever Hannibal's intentions are. But I don't think Will realizes that that's what's happening.
Oh, Will
I,
definitely doesn't, but he's so like
yeah, but
removed.
I think every single person in the entire show is preying on Will.
Yeah.
I think there is not a relationship in the show, with the exception of maybe Molly, that is
And
not
even
pregnant.
then, she still manipulates him into going back because she thinks it's better for him because she thinks he's the answer to solving the tooth fairy.
Well, and also she doesn't know him. Once
Right.
she figures out who he is or what he's really a part of, what he's actually been exposed to,
Mm-hmm.
she's scared of it. So
Right.
anyone who has seen him at his lowest, they've seen him when he's scared, when he's broken, when he's freaking out. Every single person in his life is preying on him. Um, Jack is, Alana is, Chilton is, Hannibal obviously is. No one has a um, what is the word for altruistic? No one has altruistic intentions
Mm-hmm.
towards Will. They all want something from him. And I think that we kind of just downplayed the fact that he had a severe brain infection and then it just went away. And
Yeah.
that is entirely chemically altering. And the only person who showed him any kind of kindness after that, even though there was no actual emotional integrity in said kindness, was Hannibal. And that is permanently changing your
Damaging.
brain chemistry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I think we
Yeah.
see when he's spiraling, when he is having when he's in the midst of the encephalitis, he is the most defiant to Hannibal.
Yeah.
When he is not able to think and it's all based on instinct, he is the least susceptible to Hannibal. As
Yeah.
soon as his brain is not in a state of rejection, like rebellion, Hannibal worms his way back in. And I think that that just goes to show that there is nothing of Will left in Will.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Um, but we were gonna have 3 more seasons, 4 more seasons. There's gonna be something
For
left.
fucking what? Like, and that's the thing.
But
That's the thing. I understand that there was an idea, but
Mhm.
to do what for 4 more seasons?
I truly don't know, but I do have some comments from Brian Fuller on this
Okay,
and on when he found out about cancellations.
perfect.
So he specifically says he created all of the finales in case it got canceled because he's used to shows getting canceled last minute on him. So season 1, season 2, and season 3 finales were meant to be, if they had to be finales, they could be.
Okay, I can see
Which
that.
feels
It feels like
wild though.
if,
Like
but
they're
it
all
feels
cliffhangers.
they are all cliffhangers, but they're all cliffhangers in a way that like, of course
They
they
close
are.
off the
I mean,
story, the initial story.
think about the way Silence of the Lambs ends.
Mhm.
Hannibal is not a character that is supposed to have a pretty ending.
Right, right. Um, but yeah, so he had created them all just in case. He did not actually learn until around mid-June of 2015. So if you recall, the last episode I think came out
In the middle of
in
August.
middle of August. So it was right after, like, we're about to get into Red Dragon being aired when he finds out that it's canceled.
But that means it's
Um,
definitely been filmed already.
it's definitely been filmed already. Um, and so I don't remember if we talked about this, but NBC also didn't create the show. They also didn't fund the show. They just paid for a license to film it. So they were paying $185,000 per episode to license air it, basically. And so when they decided to stop airing it, it wasn't that no one could air it. It wasn't that there was no team, there was no funding. They had all of that. They just didn't have a place for it at that point.
Nobody wanted to pick it up.
They didn't really ask, it sounds like. So he, like, they never stopped creating the show at this point. So there's possibly some episodes that have started being created for season 4, because they didn't know until halfway through season 3 airing that it was canceled. Um, but he did say like he was thinking maybe like an Amazon Prime would get it or something. Apparently Netflix could not pick it up. It had something to do with the rights to Hannibal.
Mm, okay.
Netflix couldn't
As the
have it. So
character, yeah.
yeah, so he said Netflix is really the only one that you're for sure not going to see it on. Um, and so he came out saying all this, and he was like, "We're going to see what'll pick it up." But he had also, it was like 2 weeks after finding out Hannibal was canceled, he signed his contract for American Gods, and so he was going to be then negotiating with whichever company he went with for premiere dates, for the 2 shows if he ended up doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and so he has not said this. This is me speculating. I'm speculating that he got overwhelmed and decided he was going to move forward with the show he was working on and wasn't going to take the time. However, pretty much every year since 2015, Hugh Dancy, Mads Mikkelsen, and Brian Fuller have said they would love to bring the show back.
Well,
Like as
they
recent,
have said it very, well, I was gonna say they've said it all the time, but in particular, this past Comic-Con cycle, there's been a lot of conversation about it. A lot.
well, whenever the Emerald City Comic Con was this year,
Yeah.
25,
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen's just said again how much he
Yeah.
would like it.
No,
And so
there was a con that they were both at.
I remember that one. I think that was into last year, like fall maybe of last year.
Yeah, it was. It was like October and November of last year. And
Yeah. So like, who knows? Maybe we will get it. Maybe it'll happen one day. But Brian Fuller has said it's going to go in the same vein it's been going. So we're going to get more quote unquote Hanagram.
okay. Can I tell you, this is a Reddit post that is called
Oh, yeah.
the Hannibal season 4 interview master list. And it is a
Yeah, I
list of
have that.
oh my God, a list of every single time that Hannibal season 4 has been mentioned in an
I
interview.
just scrolled to the bottom and looked at the most recent one. That's what I did when I
Yeah.
found it.
Oh, and that was at the Boston Fan Expo.
Yeah.
in the fall. Yeah, no, but
No,
the
the Emerald City. Oh, he's behind. Oh, no, no, no. If you go down to the comments, there's someone in the comments that said the Emerald City Comic Con of this year. That was the most recent.
oh, because 2025 isn't
Um,
in the original post.
yeah, yeah.
But the reason I got really excited was because in 2015, when this was actually just canceled, the first interview on here is a interview with David Tennant saying that he had already spoken to Brian Fuller about a potential guest
Mhm.
role.
Well, because Brian Fuller had initially thought of casting him as Hannibal, if you remember, we
Yeah.
talked about that, and he had plans for him to be a guest role, and I think it was for season 4. Um, but obviously it hasn't happened, so we don't know. But I think he was going to play like a spy of sorts because I think they're going to Europe next was the plan. Um,
There's even so far as an interview where one of the writers lists what the food themes for the titles for the episodes for seasons
yeah,
4, 5, and 6 would have been.
that's my next note.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Like, he said it would either be likely Korean, Cuban, or LA Creole. And they're like, I guess I get Korean because we've done Asian a lot. I don't really know where Cuban's coming from. They're like, it would have been interesting to do Louisiana Creole to go back to Will's roots and get more of him in it. And I was like, that would
Yeah,
make the most
that would
sense.
be, yeah.
Um, yeah. So I do also have a couple pieces of trivia for you. I don't remember if we talked about this one, but Dana Scully from
Totally.
X-Files, obviously,
Yeah.
was actually largely influenced by Clarice Starling. Gillian Anderson came out and said that she had based Scully off of Clarice Starling, like Jodie
Okay.
Foster's. The pilot episode killings that we got the very first time we see the rewind, like very first episode, were actually killings from the Red Dragon. But Brian Fuller thought they were going to be too clunky to put in season 3, so he just opened the whole show with it. It was not the Red Dragon, it was Hannibal, but he took the killings from the book of one of the Red Dragon's killings and made it Hannibal's first
Oh, that
killings.
first house in the first
Mm-hmm.
episode.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Um, in Digestivo, Mass was actually supposed to carry Hugh like over his shoulder, and he insisted on carrying him like bridal style, and then messed up his back. I was like, of course you did.
Love it.
Um, and so with the kiss scene that wasn't a kiss, both Mass and Hugh were all about the kiss. They were like, yes, we're ready to make this Hanagram. And Brian Fuller thought it was too much and told them that they couldn't do it, which feels like the
Um,
opposite.
um,
But
Brian, we have some questions.
I know, I know.
I've never met him. I have never experienced a man who has confused me as much as Brian Fuller.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um,
I don't think it would ever be a good idea for me to meet him at a Comic-Con because I would show up with an entire notebook. I'd be like,
you'd be like,
we,
excuse me,
excuse me, I'm gonna need about an hour of your time because I
how
have,
much do I have to pay for a block of your time?
because I have questions, concerns.
To play a clip from the podcast, I need to show you this clip. I need you to tell me more about what's going on here. Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, in regards to season 4, I know it's been 10 years, but it wouldn't be the first time we got something a decade later. I'm wondering if we're going to get it because, like you said, it is getting mentioned a lot more recently at Comic Cons. Brian Fuller just got kicked off of the Jason one, Crystal Lake, and so
Yeah.
I don't think he's placed anywhere right now. And he's finished
But
American Gods, so
what are Mass and Dancy working on right now?
nothing. I mean, Hugh Dancy, I think, is the most active of all of them.
Um,
But I don't know that they're actively working on anything right now.
no.
Because
Oh
I think
well.
I think he's been at home lately.
Um, Dan or Mads Mikkelsen
Oh,
is working on the Brian Fuller movie. That that
right.
one. But that's
Hugh
his.
Dancy is on Law and Order, which you know you got time for other stuff if you're doing Law and Order.
Which Law and Order is he on right now?
He's currently starring in the revival of Law and Order. He's playing
Oh,
the
the
senior
new one. Yeah, yeah,
ADA.
yeah.
Mhm.
The new one that's got it.
Yeah, but
Um,
like it's Law and Order. You can do Law and Order and other things.
yeah, but I'm trying to think. I thought he was on. Hold on. He was. No, he wasn't. I thought he was on in a stage show, but he was not.
Not recently.
Not recently.
I think it's been a
It's
few
been a
years.
while.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up. Did you know that Hugh Dancy is the voice of Otto Octavius in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
I did not, but I have not really kept up with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's that
I've been bad with the Marvel cartoons.
he is Doc Ock in the new
That's amazing.
Spider-Man.
Again, something you could work around.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so they're both available.
Yeah.
Um, so now might be the time. And
Yeah.
so who knows? They might be working on it, just not telling nobody. Um,
Man.
I think at minimum we're gonna get something from Hannibal with Maz and Hugh. I don't know if it's gonna be like maybe they're gonna try and do like a spinoff or like a spinoff movie or something, or like a couple episodes, something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they're getting ready to do a Hannibal recap podcast. Who's to say? Um, but there's just a lot of talk and everyone's available right now.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know what uh Caroline DeVernis is doing because they're gonna want her back. Lawrence Fishburne, they're gonna want him back, but I feel like he's just always doing everything. So I feel like he's
Yeah,
taking
Lawrence
time.
Fishburne could be doing 18 things at once and it would
Mm-hmm.
be fine. He, I mean, Lawrence Fishburne, what a career.
I know, bless him. He's just a rock star.
Um,
Um,
Lawrence Fishburne is the kind of person where there's a separate Wikipedia page for his filmography. What's he doing right now? He, oh, he's gonna be in the new season of The Witcher.
mm.
He's been doing a lot of voice work recently. I'm
Oh,
terrible.
Caroline DeVernis is the official voice announcer of the Russo Express Metropolitan,
Oh, that's great.
following the footsteps of her mother, who was the voice of Montreal Metro since 2003. She got time.
Um,
She got time to do the show.
Lawrence Fishburne has 4 movies coming out in 2025.
That doesn't even matter. You could have 10.
One of them is Thunderbolts, and I'm really excited for that.
Mm. All right. My last question to you, or I have two more, but
Yeah.
my last big question about Hannibal. Do you have any final thoughts or feelings about the show before we wrap it up? We've said a lot of them, but
I think I have said a lot of them. I almost wish we hadn't watched season 3 so that I could end it really liking the show still. Uh,
I feel like it got some of an arc, even though I definitely think season 3 was not as good as 1 or 2 by any means. But I'm not
I,
as upset as I thought I was going to be.
yeah. No, I'm not upset with like it doesn't feel like a robbery. Like sometimes when a
Right.
show doesn't has a plan and it gets canceled, it feels like a robbery. I don't feel that way. I just didn't like the storyline and where they went with it, which also means I probably wouldn't have liked where they were going with season
Yeah.
4. So
Mhm.
I'm like, maybe I'm just better
Maybe it's
off
best for
this.
you. Yeah.
Maybe I'm done with this character.
Right, right. Well, this iteration of this character, you still have 2 movies to talk about, and another TV show. So
Yeah, well, we'll see how much I
yeah,
have to
these
say about
are
those.
yeah, I think I've probably said all my feelings as well. Well, now that we've watched Bates Motel and we've watched Hannibal, we've watched The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Is there another show based off of an iconic movie that hasn't been made yet that you think you'd like to see?
Hmm. I don't know. I think that's really a hard question because I think a lot of the other big iconic like horror movies, um, I think the problem with a lot of the big other iconic horror movies is that they didn't end them.
Yeah,
Like there has been a billion Jason and Freddy movies. There have been a billion versions of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like
yeah.
people are so stuck on these characters that they didn't give them time to breathe.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel like the gap between things in the Psycho world and the Hannibal world was more breathable, more had more room for wanting to see more from that character.
Yeah,
Um, Plus I just like don't really love horror movies.
I know. I know. But
Um,
we've liked those
no,
shows that I
yes,
mentioned.
no,
Yeah.
we have, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of the really good psychological thriller villains are the ones that I like more, and I
Mhm.
think that they're not always easy to do well in
Right.
TV.
Yeah,
Um,
I think like if I was gonna pick one, I didn't actually think this question through before I asked you. I did write it down 2 hours ago and never thought about it again.
Good.
So I think I'd like something Hitchcock universe style, similar to how they did the Stephen King universe one. What is that called?
Oh, Castle
Castle
Rock.
Rock, yeah.
Yeah,
So I haven't watched Castle Rock. I've heard good things about it because I haven't read enough Stephen King and I want to be more familiar with his world before I see it as a
that's fair. I can't because
show.
I read three Stephen King short stories and then threw up and couldn't pick up a book again for like a year. So,
I do think they're based off of his long form novels, which, in my opinion, are less
are
scary than his short stories.
which I have heard, but I was
Yeah,
11 and it was a
right.
scarring experience for me.
Yeah. But I think with Hitchcock, you might could do universe. I mean, you could have a Psycho, you could have a Birds, you could have a Vertigo, and I don't know how they all combine, but I also didn't know how the universes in Castle Rock would combine, and they seem to have done that, and people like it. So
Right.
maybe do it like a Hitchcock style universe, or even like a Twilight Zone style Hitchcock universe or something that doesn't that's more a little more anthology based as opposed to like series based like Hannibal or Bates Motel or something.
You know what I would be really interested in? And part of it's because I can't stop watching videos of Epic Universe. Um, I would be very interested in an actual like psychological thriller in the world of the classic Universal monsters. Like
Ooh,
the dra
yeah.
like not just because obviously like the classic monster movies are not that scary,
Mhm.
but I think that in a world where those characters existed with the technology and writing that we have now, you could do something that stayed true to those characters and the visuals and ambiance of the classic 30s movies while still having like an
Mhm.
actual horror edge to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good. I also would like to see an anthology based series on like Edgar Allan Poe's works.
Oh,
I
that
know
would
they've done a
be
couple of movies, but I think a series would be cool too.
I do too. And I think if someone who had the ability to write it in a way where the narrator in those stories was actually connected and there was characters that built
Mhm.
upon each other, like it would be,
Yeah, I think that would be
yeah,
top notch.
yeah,
Maybe I'll write that.
maybe.
Somebody needs to come in and pull out all the sound bites, right? Maybe I'll write that and tell me what I said I was going to write, and then maybe
Yeah.
I'll write one of them. But that is it. Our time has come to an end with the Hannibal series. We are not done, however, with Hannibal. We are watching Silence of the Lambs next week, which you can find on Pluto or Tubi, perhaps other places, but those are both free places I know about.
Yeah,
Um,
if you do watch it on Pluto, just don't forget that Pluto has about an hour's worth of commercials in every movie that you watch there. I did forget that.
right. You can also look at your local library, which is also my next suggestion for Clarice because it doesn't exist anywhere unless you want to buy it on Apple TV or Prime Video. It is $20 for the whole season, which seems excessive. However, that is the legal way to do it.
Yeah.
Um, MK did find it at her library, so you
Yes.
could potentially find it at your library. So I would recommend looking there as well. Because we will be getting into that season before we wrap it all up with Hannibal from 2001,
Yeah.
which
I
is
mean,
the sequel and final movie.
and I know the hard copy media is not people's jam anymore, but I'm guessing it is probably cheaper to buy the DVD set than it would be to rent it, or to buy it on
Right.
Amazon digitally.
Yeah, probably so. Because also, like, I mean, I know people don't have like DVD players anymore. I mean, I think I do, but I don't think other
If
people
you
do. But I have
haven't,
like an
I was like,
Xbox,
if you
so
have an
you can,
Xbox or a PlayStation, you can watch a DVD. It's not that hard.
right, right. So you have the means to an end there.
Um, Hold on, I'm just looking up what the
The price on
DVD.
Amazon.
Um, Yeah, so watching it, it's $20 to buy the season digitally. To buy a DVD of it is $13 and it's 2-day delivery on Prime.
Oh, I might do that. And then I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and then
it's
add
less
it to my
money
shelf.
and it's less money than you would spend on a meal at McDonald's. So
That is true. That is true. Yeah. So it's, and some of you may have watched it when it was on CBS. I know a lot of people watched it when it came out. So maybe you've already watched it. You just want to hear our commentary on it.
yeah,
But in the meantime, we are going to be getting back to Stargate next week. We are still in Stargate too. I
I'm
feel
sure
like I
we're.
have spent 17 hours with Hannibal today, but don't fret. We do still have our sci-fi Sundays. In the meantime, if you want to email us, you can find us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you on Sunday for Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.